Okay, here we are at the Gibson Guitar Studios, and I'm with one of the legends of progressive rock, Mr. Steve Hackett.
How you doing?
Fine, thank you. And how are you?
Not bad, not bad. For it's a summer's day, but I'm dressed for TV.
So you're looking very refined, and we're here to talk about. You've got a new live album coming out. It's Genesis Revisited, live at the Royal Albert Hall. It's also DVD and Blu-ray 5.1, and it's coming out in various disguises.
Yes, 78 wax cylinder.
If only we still could.
I would if I could.
And let's talk about those shows at the Albert Hall, because obviously you play all over the world, many theatres, but the Albert Hall is always a special occasion for fans and musicians. So, how was that for you, playing the Albert Hall?
Well, it is the best hall in the world, and it's worth going to see anything, whether it's a wrestling match, a dog show, or flower arranging, whatever it might be, And I've seen all sorts of strange things going on there over the years. I saw the last Cream gig there, and that's before they had the baffles up, so of course it was floating around everywhere in those days. I've seen orchestras there.
What was the first time you went there, as a fan or as a musician?
The first time, I think, was about 1968, and I went to see a classical thing. I went to see the New World Symphony. Mm-hmm. I'd never heard of the Royal Albert Hall, or the New World Symphony, or Dvorak, and there you go. I hadn't, but the place was extraordinary, and I remember climbing up to the gods, up the top of the gallery, on top, and looking down on the stage, which seemed very far away. And when I played there recently, I went up the top, and it still looked like a very long way away. It's just a few flyers down there that are doing their business. So it was a great evening. I was very nervous, thinking this is where Holst premiered The Planets. No pressure, it's being filmed. All your family there. Don't screw up. And
when it's being filmed, does it make you more nervous? Are you aware that the cameras are there?
It does. I mean, although, strictly speaking, you can't go anywhere without anything being filmed. Wherever I play these days, if I play at the Dog and Bucket, someone's got and it's on YouTube tomorrow. That rehearsal, is on YouTube. So everything is on film all the time. So you shouldn't really worry about it. Except this one was mixed in surround, with the bells and whistles, and so it's...
You just mentioned about, like in modern day times, people got their iPhones. And is that something you encourage? Are you happy for fans to film you when you're on stage?
It's you would be drowned with the rising tide if you tried to control that. I mean, I think the old days of Zeppelin and Manager and co. taking people to task over that sort of thing. I think those days are unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, gone. I know there's the idea that music ought to be free, and I did include it in a lyric once, so I'm just as to blame as anyone else. But it would be nice if there weren't quite so many bootlegs out there, but that's just the way it is.
Something got to ride.
Who gets away with it these days? Nobody. Right?
No.
Not even the Queen.
That's right. And when you've got your audience there, and obviously because of your days with Genesis, the audience sort of is like 45 to 65-year-old age group.
Yeah.
Is that something that puts a smile on your face, the fact that the fans have stayed with you for so many years? And also, there's also younger fans there who didn't catch you first time round.
Well, that's it. You see, it's. I always say that fans are from 8 to 80. I mean, they really are. I've had people who are in their 80s showing up for the gigs, and it's an extraordinary thing. But people are always. Well, they're there for different reasons, but young people, very young people who are not quite teenagers yet, are there because there's no way they're going to be there for anything other than to figure out how to play guitar, drums, keyboard. They're taking it in a way where everyone else is having an evening out, but for them it's research, isn't it?
That's right. And even though it says Steve Hackett on the ticket, it's actually quite a band thing going on.
Oh yeah, this is totally a band thing, yeah. This one's less about guitar heroics than it is about a band, but with ensemble power. I like to think that it's because the music's the star of the show.
And obviously people like Gary O'Toole, the drums, who also sings like the Broadway section, and Nad Sylvan. Yeah. They've also got to be quite theatrical in their approach as well. So how hard was it to find those two guys?
Well, Gary I've worked with since about the year 2000, and strictly speaking, I'm working with him because he's a great drummer, but he happens to have a wonderful voice. So he's the only guy I know on earth who can, at some gigs, sit there and sing and play Watch With the Skies at the same time. Just to be able to play the drum part, you've got to be able to do an enormous amount of different things with your hands and feet, never mind to sing it in time as well. And he's done that in his time, so that's a pretty amazing feat anyway. I don't know how he does it.
You know, in the show at the Albert Hall, Ray Wilson came on and guested with you for Carpet Crawlers and I Know What I Like. And obviously Ray Wilson was in Genesis from a completely different time than from you.
Different incarnation of Genesis. The Calling All Stations incarnation was the third or fourth incarnation of that band, as it goes back a long way. But, you know, he and I are fans of each other, so that's all right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we threatened to do things together on record, and I think we probably will one day. After he sang, we had another version, a shortened version, a single version of Revisited, and he sang Carpet Crawlers on that as well. He did a great job. Great singer, nice guy.
Did you think the Genesis fans were harsh on him first time round?
Well, I think that Gabriel and Collins are a very hard act to follow. Collins, Phil, found it hard to follow Pete because a lot of people wanted to see Pete still, and it's like, who's this young upstart, this usurper? But maybe they were more forgiving because he was the guy on the drums. I think with Ray coming from the outside, coming in as a frontline vocalist without playing an instrument, because he's not from the ranks, there's always going to be the catcalls, you know. But yeah, I think that was a tough one for him. I mean, he'd already been a success with Stillskin himself.
That's right, number one hit. Yeah.
So there you go. You know, it's it. But you know, he lives in Poland these days. He's still got a great voice, and he's going to go far. He's hugely successful in some areas.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, in Europe he is. Yeah.
That's right. So you know, it's art is long, isn't it? Life is short, art is long. Ars longa vita brevis, to quote the nicest.
And let's go back on the subject of Genesis Revisited. Obviously you did it in '96 with the album, and the second time round in 2012, the reception was a lot bigger and wider. And why was that exactly?
I don't know if the reception was bigger then. I mean, I called it extended this year because there was such a little call for it, so I came back and was able to do other places. I mean, I've just done 3 months in Europe. I've just done Moscow and St. Petersburg for the first time.
Also Mexico, I think you played recently as well.
Mexico, yeah, I think we did it. Now, when did we? I know we did Mexico, and I'm hoping to go back there. But I think it was on the end of or the beginning of last year. So yeah, it's a big world. We'll get around to everywhere if we can.
Is there anywhere in the world we haven't played yet? Like you'd like to tick off one day?
I haven't played Iceland, and I've just had an invitation to go there. I've not played Australia.
That's surprising.
Most places I haven't played yet. I haven't played Greece or Turkey, but I'm visiting Greece.
Yeah.
And, but that's for a holiday and not for work.
Are you surprised by the big re-emergence of progressive rock music itself? You know, right off the Prog Rock magazine and everything. It's just a big renewed interest in the whole genre of the music.
Well, there was, and it's the same people who are involved with classic rock magazines. So initially, I was, you know, the rekindling of interest was via classic rock, and then they felt there was such interest in the progressive scene that was outselling the classic, so-called classic scene. So basically, it's all rock, isn't it? Under one umbrella, really. It doesn't really matter whether it's prog. Some tracks are more proggy than others, and some are more poppy, some are more rocky.
And let's talk about your own sort of musical backgrounds. I know you're a big sort of a classical lover as well.
Yeah.
What sort of music do you listen to these days when you're at home?
Well, the stuff I listen to, other people might not know that well. I mean, I sometimes work with a band called Jarbi, who are Hungarian, kind of world music, fusion-y, jazzy stuff. But what's nice about working with them is that they introduce me to people from different parts of the world, like a guy I'm working with called Malik Mansurov, who plays the tar. It's related to the guitar family, sitar, guitar, tar, you know. But he's like the John McLaughlin of the tar. And it sounds amazing when that's being doubled by one violinist. And suddenly it sounds like this whole orchestra, because it's got these resonant strings and you get these resonances being set up. So I'm very excited about that. I've just started working with this guy, and I've got a lot of performances to turn into something, if you know what I mean. I took the idea that let's just do it free rein, you know, total immersion. Let him do what he does, then work with it after the event. But it's an amazing sound. It's like having discovered Ravi Shankar, if you've never heard sitar before. It's a beautiful sounding instrument. He does these wonderful trills that I'm very envious of. But my guitar doesn't make that sound. My Gibson doesn't do it, my Fernandez doesn't do it, my nylon doesn't do it. And I've just bought an Arabian, or rather an Iraqi oud, a fretless lute, because I saw some of that stuff being played when I was in Morocco.
It's like some fascinating sounds to be heard in the Arabic scene, isn't it?
Yeah, and rhythmically, it's very developed as well. And so I wandered into one shop in Morocco, and this guy showed me a picture. He said, "Oh yeah, I had Robert Plant here. There's a picture of me and Robert Plant, you know, and he's playing Darburka and sounded wonderful." So also our guy who initially played sax with us and flute and whistle, Rob Townsend, he's also turned into an amazing duduk player. So duduk, Armenian, something that Pete Gabriel popularised, I think, with The Last Temptation of Christ, that sound that was on the Gladiator soundtrack and all that. Fascinating sound, you know, 1 minute it sounds like a wind instrument, the next it's like a brass instrument, wide vibratos, very short, only does a couple of octaves I think at most, but it's what it does within it, it's very much like the human voice, it sort of morphs between all these things, and it's a very spooky sound, so it's right up my street.
So is that definitely what you're going to be doing for your next album kind of thing? You're going to be moving towards the world music sort of venture?
Well, some of it's in that area. I think that it's all contextual. You know, where do you place world music in all of that? Does it mean you go off and, you know, immerse the music entirely in that as if you came from that region? Or do you take those regional influences and place them in somewhere in a corner of the painting? So that's the idea, is that some instruments like uilleann pipes, I'm hoping to use that to set the scene, perhaps, of where I've got the idea of a track set geographically. So and like a lot of the progressive stuff, it's music telling a story. So that's part of it, whether it's a story about Greece or whether it's, you know, the other regions, what made up, the tribes that made up Europe as we know it today, and then filtered down to parts of Africa, and we're all part of it as Celtic stock over here. So we're all.
There's a knock-on effect all the way down. If you look at sort of the Macmillan history, we're all connected to each other one way or another.
Well, yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a very odd. It's a very odd connection, all of that. But I do delve into that quite a bit. And it's produced a different kind of lyric, different kind of way of looking at things, beyond being able to play guitar and harmonica, which are my two main things.
Do you think like world music sort of gets the exposure that it deserves? Well, everything's like pigeonholed like into the classic rock scene or pop culture, but you don't really hear the world music anywhere, really, do you?
Well, I think you do in a lot of places where, if I'm playing in a festival in Romania, for instance, with Jarbi, as I sometimes do, and do the places that are kind of off the map for rock, you find that world music is part of it anyway. You know, if it's Bulgaria, you might have those amazing women singers, but you've also got these other things, and they've assimilated it into their culture as just part of folk music. Whereas because we're so orientated towards perhaps Anglo-American dominance, and maybe it's more American Anglo dominance of the scene now, I think we're a little bit too much in our own bubble, whereas in fact other places they've always had to be open to it because this was a very exclusive club at one time. If you weren't British or American, forget rock and roll. But that's changed now.
I think a lot of people will be surprised, like we've got the World Cup coming up in Brazil, like Brazil's got its own unique sound kind of music, and it's very dominant in their charts.
Yes. Yeah, I've worked there, I've recorded stuff there. Again, I use this word total immersion in percussion, which is their big thing. So one man, one drum, that's how it works. And a lot of them are too poor to own anything other than one drum. So that's how it developed, getting as many sounds as you could out of that one drum. The repeaky is the one that comes to mind. Little tiny drum, but they do things on it that you wouldn't believe, and you can hear a guy with a tambourine making it sound like a whole drum kit. A guy like Ayoto Moreira can do that, holds it up to the mic and he does a whole drum solo on one tambourine. So,
have you ever been accustomed to the Asian sound? Because all the Asian countries got a very different, unique sound to each country. Is that something you've come across?
Well, it's a big wide world out there, and I have worked with quite a few people from different regions, but I had a Chinese or Cantonese koto, which I used on one or two albums, and that's a beautiful instrument, lovely, and you tune it to open chords, so you can't actually play a wrong note in the chord. 5-note pentatonic scale stuff, and that can be very beautiful. I used it on Spectral Mornings, and that's probably going to end up getting remixed in 5/1. That's all kind of coming up for next year, I think, so some of my past being represented.
And of course, let's go back to this year, because we are continuing with Genesis Revisited tour.
Yeah.
You can see yet again, and you're playing like theatres around the country. It is a UK tour. You are taking in Wales and Glasgow, so you get them happy. It is a UK tour. People in Belfast are losing out, unfortunately.
And another, well, this time they will, but we did Dublin a while back, but I have done Belfast as well at times, but then I'll be back to doing it solo stuff and not Genesis stuff,
What, on this tour? Or
not on this tour, but next year. So
I know you're tweaking the set list around on this.
I am tweaking it around, there's some different numbers. There's the Knife, because it's such a guitar-heavy number. There's Squonk, which again is guitar written. There's Lily White Lilith, which is basically written around a kind of a bass riff, really, but keyboards, really. I take the guitar down an octave on that and fuzz it up. So I'm kind of doing the bass part along with Nick Beggs, who's playing.
Yes, he's returning for this tour.
He's playing it on stick. So and then there's Mellotron Brass playing as well. So 3 of us are doing it. So it's quite heavy. It's quite sort of, it's almost Chandler, but with attitude.
Yeah. Great. And you're not playing the Albert Hall this time, but you're playing the London Fentim Apollo, as it's now known. But of course, me and you always know it as Hammersmith Odeon.
Hammersmith Odeon,
Well, that must have many memories for you, that theatre over the years.
Yeah, I played there many times over the years, and it was always a great experience. There's a vicious slapback off the back wall, because when you're playing, you think, am I playing in time, or is it that other band? It's coming back. But it's a great venue, and it's worth recording there.
It's great. I think the most sort of famous Genesis song from your time in the band is I Know What I Like. And what sort of feeling does that give you when you hear it on the radio?
It still gets played, and we do a mean version of it now. We do our own version where we trade around solos and do different things. It was produced as a result. We have stops and starts. So we don't have Pete doing the lawnmower, and we don't have Phil doing the tambourine dance. But there's something else that starts to happen as we bat it backwards and forwards. So a bit of an excuse for a bit of a rave up on the saxophone.
So when you hear it on the radio, does it take you back to a time and a place?
Oh yes, absolutely, yeah. I love that thing from 1973. That sort of ramshackle thing that Genesis did at the time, a band a bit out on a ramble, a country ramble on a picnic, turned into a song. It's not very proggy. It's more kind of the yokel sort of aspect to it.
Right, well, Steve, it's been great talking to you.
Yeah, nice talking to you too.
The album Genesis Revisited live at the Royal Albert Hall is out on June the 30th in various formats, so go and get them, buy them all. Steve, all the best for the future. Thank you very much.
All the best.
Cheers.